Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, May the 5th. Mr. Baines, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Dr. Orth. Here. Dr. Leming. Here. Mr. Hutson.
Here.
Mr. Chriscoe.
Here.
Mr. Nicosia.
Here.
Ms. Hanson. Here. Mr. Bonniville. Here. All are present, sir.
Thank you, sir. All that are able, will you please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? The invocation will be given tonight by the Honorable Chris Hutson from Gloucester Point District, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Ms. River Totten from Petsworth Elementary.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we gather here tonight to conduct the County of Gloucester's business. Please watch over the servicemen, first responders, but also watch out for teachers and other servants of the county. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. That's right. Next, we have minutes from February 3rd up for approval. We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Next, we have matters presented by the board. Are there any matters that the board members would like to bring forward at this time? Mr. Baines, are there any county administrator items you'd like to share?
Absolutely, sir. This week is Hurricane Preparedness Week, so just look out for the information that we send out from the county for the weather and what could be happening with hurricanes this season. It's Public Service Recognition Week. So this week we're recognizing our employees for the good job that they do for us. We're getting ready to mail out the annual flood risk letters. Those are for the people down in the flood areas to make them aware of what we do for them from the flood insurance CRS program, where we save them money on their insurance. And the last thing is, tomorrow is the mandatory pre-bid for the Gloucester Fire Station 1. I will not be at that, but our purchasing agent and Ms. Calloway will be there.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Baines? Okay. We have no scheduled presentations, and we will move now to our public comment period. Please come forward, state your name, your magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. There is a public hearing on tonight's agenda, so if you have comments for the public hearing, please wait to the public hearing comment section to discuss those. At this time, I'll open the public comment period.
Good evening. I'm Ken Gibson from the Petsworth District, and tonight I am speaking to condemn the firing of County Administrator Carol Steele and to make clear the problems this decision has created for Gloucester County. As the most recent Petsworth District representative on the board, I had the pleasure of working with Ms. Steele for 4 years. I came to know Ms. Steele as a highly effective leader, one who was diligent, one who was ethical, respected by county employees and the public alike. The public should know that Carol Steele had already advised this board that she planned to retire in 1 year. Using this timeline would have given the county a smooth transition to a new leader without causing harm to our county. But no, 4 of you wanted a political scalp. You were pushed by tired, rejected leadership of the past and a tiny group of angry, dead-enders on social media who revel in tearing others down and fighting against any positive change in the county. So now Gloucester County will suffer the consequences. First, our county will suffer the poisoning of the well of any top quality candidates who want to consider coming to Gloucester County. They're not going to get near the county with a dysfunctional, divided board. Second, the county will suffer significant financial loss. Third, the firing has resulted in plummeting employee morale and key employee departures. For these reasons, the 4 members who fired Carol Steele should state publicly why they make this decision. You cannot hide behind the cover line of "it's a personnel decision." Truth is the ultimate defense to any claim of defamation. So please speak the truth and tell the public why you made this decision instead of using gossip and innuendo with others outside the public eye. To the 4 who voted to fire Ms. Steele, first, Dr. Leming. When I met with you to discuss stepping down from the Board of Supervisors, I asked you, what prompted your interest to run? You said, Teresa Altimus recruited you to run. Then you said, and I know Carol Steele has to go. I think the public deserves to know what your discussions were with Ms. Altimus about Carol Steele. After discussing Carol Steele further with you, you assured me that you would give Carol Steele a full opportunity to prove herself with you. Yet, less than 3 months into your tenure, you made the motion to fire Ms. Steele. Mr. Chriscoe, I sat on the board with you for 4 years for every performance evaluation for Ms. Steele. They were consistently excellent. What's changed in 3 months? And Mr. Bonniville and Ms. Hanson, thank you for your service, but you're less than 3 months into serving in elective office, something you've never done before. How could you possibly have gained the experience and knowledge to make such a momentous decision? The public deserves to know these answers from each of you. Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Teresa Stavens. My husband Troy and I have the privilege of residing in Gloucester for the last 27 years. We currently reside on Main Street and are represented by Ware District Supervisor Tony Nicosia. Let me begin by thanking each and every one of you for your dedication and commitment to serving the citizens of our community. Being an elected official commands public respect and carries serious responsibilities and accountability. But I come to you to speak to the 7 of you this evening with a heavy heart. Along with thousands of members of our community, my husband and I were shocked, appalled, and deeply saddened to learn of the inexplicable, mysterious March 30 closed-door session which resulted in the termination of County Administrator Carol Steele. Carol Steele's 39-year career with Gloucester County can only be described as remarkable. She is a truly dedicated, incredibly talented public servant. Carol's character, her invincible can-do attitude, and indefatigable caring spirit for all members of this community will likely be impossible to replace, particularly if this is the way Gloucester County's top elected officials treat their highly revered, long-standing employees. It seems the collateral damage from how Gloucester County values and treats its employees has already begun, as evidenced by the resignation of Deputy County Administrator and CFO Maria Calloway. Lieutenant Colonel Bucky Burris and I had the incredible experience of bringing history to life here in Gloucester with the Revolutionary War reenactment of the 1781 Battle of the Hook, not once, but twice. The 2008 and 2013 reenactments that took place at Warner Hall, where my husband Troy and I were the proprietors, are still being talked about in the reenactment communities worldwide. Colonel Burris and others refer to this production of that reenactment as the gold standard, and it could not have happened without Carol Steele. The community is still benefiting from the economic, historic, educational impacts of those great events. It was her team leadership that got us there. Carol's accomplishments are too numerous to count. We think of her every time we visit Beaver Dam, Woodville, or Machicomico parks. We think of her every time we hear of a Gloucester resident, a person who might be isolated from internet connectivity, who now has the opportunity through the broadband connectivity that Carol fought so hard to deliver. I can only conclude by asking that in the future, you 7 supervisors really think, and work together to cultivate and preserve the talents of those employees that are not easily replaced. That the fate of a 39-year honored veteran of Gloucester County administration is not determined by a board of individuals, some of whom had only
Ms.
worked
Davis, can you
with
wrap this
Carol
up,
for
please?
30 days.
Your time's up, please. Ms.
Please
Davis, wrap it
reflect
up.
and recommit yourselves to carefully and thoughtfully representing
Thank you.
all of the citizens of our county. Thank you.
Kevin Smith, Gloucester Point District. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Wilmot, Mr. Baines, members of the board. As a former board member who worked with Carol for 1 year during her time as acting county administrator and for nearly 4 years as county administrator, I'm speaking tonight to express my concern and disappointment over her termination. Carol was highly productive, very active in this community, who consistently achieved results while maintaining a strong collaborative relationship with her staff. I just don't understand why. Even when faced with difficult situations, she demonstrated genuine care for her team. I can't understand her firing. Why? Throughout her tenure, she received excellent evaluations, with only one critique being that she worked too hard. Tell me, why was she fired for working too hard? As recently as November the 25th of 2025, this board praised her performance and the quality of her work. Excellent. But she was fired. Beyond her professional duties, Carol was a beacon of light for this community. She was highly visible, frequently volunteering at events and accepting speaking engagements. She truly embodied what the county wanted and needed as an administrator. I don't understand why. It is deeply concerning that her standing went from excellent to termination in 3 months. I'm not understanding the firing. I would like to thank the board members, Mr. Hutson, Dr. Orth, Mr. Nicosia, for voting to retain Ms. Steele. To those of you who voted otherwise, citing personnel reasons, there was a gentleman that used to come before this board named Mr. Don Mitchell that used to always tell us at the end of his public comments, the oysters are watching. Well, I can top that. The oysters are not watching, but God Almighty is watching. And believe me, what's done in the dark will come to light.
Evening. Pardon my sunglasses. I know I'm not at the beach. Board of Supervisors, Mr. Chair, my name is Chris Applegate. Most of the folks that have already spoken, they know who their representative is. I do not. I've never had to worry about that. I've been here for 7 years. I moved down here for a reason, for peace, tranquility, sensitivity, and just good people, and I've found that to be true. Unfortunately, when I opened the paper a couple of weeks ago to discover what was done to Ms. Steele, that was extremely upsetting to me. It was, and I don't know what your reasons are. I think I think we should know. But whether we're going to know or not, I know that what you did was cruel. And it's cruel for what we've just heard right now about a person that's dedicated her life to this county. I wonder what was taken into consideration that was so horrible to end her career here. And I would like to know. I realize you folks have a lot of power. You can do what you want, but power is not to be used just because you can use it. I think you should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
I'm Brent Heath, and I'm from Ware District, and I've spent the majority of my 80 years here in Gloucester. I've known almost all the boards of supervisors who've served. Gloucester County is an honorable place. It's land of the life worth living. Once before, a similar occurrence happened, instigated by the same individual, and fortunately, we've gotten back on track. What has happened? What instigated you to do what is a dishonorable, unethical action? Did you save yourselves $100,000? What was it that caused you to do this? I think we have a right to know. And please, for the rest of your term, the four of you, please clean up your act and be honorable, be straightforward. Come forward and let us know if there's a problem. We can understand those things, but I don't think there was a problem. There was an individual, personal thing that happened. And please don't let the rest of your time in office governing our wonderful county in this manner. Thank you very much.
Anybody else wishing to come forward for public comment?
I'm Diane Jones from the Ware District. And the main reason I wanted to speak tonight was to apologize to the board for comments I made about Dr. Vladu and the school board. Dr. Vladu is very smart, but so are the school board members, and they are working very well together, and there are lots of great things going on at the school currently. Now, about Mrs. Steele, I can only speak from firsthand knowledge of what one of the things that may have prompted the board to remove her. And that is that she bought an AI system for $25,000 without the knowledge or consent of the board. And then she utilized that AI system to find out where I went to church. She sent someone out of her office to my church 3 times to find out what I did in the church. I pray for the sick in my church. I'm one of the healing team members. And she commented to me in a public forum that, I know you got a lighthouse, and I know you think you can pray for people. With that attitude. So I did address the school board without mentioning her name the Board of Supervisors without mentioning her name about this. But that's one reason why she definitely should be removed. Another reason is She likes her pet projects, and I don't have anything against Park and Rec and getting beautifying the county. But when you don't have the money to fix the plumbing, and you don't have the money for the fire department, then you can't put money into superfluous ideas that may be nice once you pay your bills and get the basics done in the county. That's nice. I don't see a whole lot of community involvement in these parks and things, because in other counties in which I've lived, there are clubs like, I don't know, the Lions Club and other service organizations that raise money for these kinds of projects when the county doesn't have it. I'm still waiting for the water company to repair my lawn after the third time they've dug up my backyard, because I don't think they get paid enough, and I don't think there's the money to hire the landscaper to come and finish it. That's all I have to say. Good job.
I'm Margaret Bowditch, known better as Peggy. I met Carol Steele almost 40 years ago when I walked into Parks and Recreation to meet a new employee and suggest that we have a daffodil festival. She listened immediately, and we just celebrated our 40th year. I worked with Carol in the 350 celebration, and she was constantly asking me, are we doing enough for the citizens of the county to get them involved in this celebration? She was selfless. She was always interested in what we could do to make this county better. And as nervous as I am, I speak to you because I love this county, and what 4 of you did was not beneficial to the county. I feel that you were serving a personal agenda, and you have given me no reason to believe otherwise. You have made a very serious mistake in dismissing Carol, because you will never find a person with the experience she brought to the job after serving in numerous positions for 40 years. I don't think, as many have said, that people will feel comfortable coming here to work after your actions. Shame on you. I'm sorry that you did what you did.
Anybody else wishing to come forward for this public comment period? Ms. Cronin, do we have any emails or voicemails?
Yes, Mr. Chair. From Donald Parker in the York District. I am commenting as a former chairperson of Gloucester's Park Partners organization regarding the recent termination of our former county administrator, Carol Steele. It is, in my opinion, that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors made a short-sighted decision to terminate Ms. Steele without just cause. In my association with Ms. Steele over the past 15 or so years, I found her to be hardworking and conscientious in her leadership to make Gloucester County a great place to live, with ample parks and recreational opportunities. As she transitioned into the role of county administrator, she has continued carrying out her duties with the same enthusiasm and commitment. It was not uncommon to see Carol in boots and jeans out in the county inspecting project sites and evening dress for evening functions. Ms. Steele has been and is a great ambassador for the county, connecting with other Gloucester entities in the U.S. as well as around the world. The board should consider reinstating her as county administrator, and if not, provide just compensation. Thank you for your consideration, Donald Parker. And then from Lourdes Parker in the York District, to the Gloucester Board of Supervisors, reinstatement of Carol Steele. As a member of the Gloucester community for more than 35 years, I urge you to reinstate Carol Steele to her position as County Administrator. Ms. Steele has demonstrated her ability and competence as a leader, willing to collaborate to keep the name of Gloucester County in the forefront as a desirable community to live, according to the Board of Supervisors' direction. As Director of Parks and Rec and Tourism for more than 10 years, she worked to enhance the quality of life for young people and adults by working to create public parks, especially Woodville Park, with the collaboration of a community advisory board. When traveling to England with officials of the county, she was careful to ensure that all expenses for herself and her son were paid by her so as not to create any semblance of malfeasance. It is her ability to reach out to the entire community of Gloucester and to the world that she has demonstrated her passion to present Gloucester as the land of the life worth living. Let's keep it that way. Reinstate Carol Steele. Those are the only comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Anybody else wishing to come forward? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period, and we will move to tonight's public hearing. A public hearing to consider an amendment to the zoning ordinance addressing mobile food vendors and mobile food vendor courts. Ms. Ann Ducey Ortiz, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Environmental Programs.
Good evening, members of the board and the public. Hopefully a brief presentation for you tonight. So this is a proposed code amendment for mobile food vendors and mobile food courts. This was initiated by an inquiry we got from Small Town Burger. They have existing sites in Kilmarnock and Urbana, and they attended a site plan meeting, and based on our current ordinance, it was not a use that was permitted. A restaurant must be a building, and they were proposing a food truck. If it was a building, it would have to meet all the ADA compliance requirements. They attended a November Planning Commission meeting and asked the Planning Commission to sponsor a code amendment, which is allowed by our ordinance. The Planning Commission agreed to sponsor the proposal. So staff researched other locality ordinances and came up with an idea for consideration. That was discussed at the Planning Commission's March meeting, and the Planning Commission held their public hearing in April and voted to forward the proposed ordinance to the board for approval. So it started out with just two definitions: a mobile food vendor, which is what you typically call a food truck, and then a mobile food vendor court is the idea of having it a permanent location that is still a food truck, or maybe more than one food truck, but it doesn't move around. So we basically researched other localities and kind of just used some ideas from other localities to come up with those two definitions. So essentially, the mobile food vendors, we currently don't regulate them. They basically can move around and go from site to site. So this ordinance would actually just kind of clarify what we're already doing now. So it's similar to other exempt uses where we really only would regulate them if there was a problem or a complaint. So again, it wouldn't affect anything related to, like the farmers market or festivals or catered events. Would really be only on private property. And we're currently proposing them to be in the RC1, B1, B2, B4, and I1 districts, and again, without getting a permit. So the conditions in the ordinance are, again, those would typically be required by the health department, a health department permit, a valid peddler's license through our Commissioner of Revenue, consent of the property owners. They would only be allowed to be occupied during other business hours when they're already open for business, and they would have to leave when the business closes for the evening. Then also a maximum of 10 days per month and no more than 2 consecutive days per site. Requirements for trash receptacles shall not obstruct pedestrian or other site circulation. And then 15 feet away from fire hydrants, not on vacant properties, and solely not on properties that are solely parking lots. So a lot of these requirements would really be self-regulated by the property owners and the food truck people, and again, a lot of these came from other localities that regulate food trucks. But we're not proposing to require them to get a permit for every site, so it's really going to be similar to what is currently happening in the county. So the idea for the mobile food vendor court would be a more permanent location and be through a conditional use permit, so it would be done on a case-by-case basis for each site. We're proposing them in the B2, B1, B4, and I1 zoning districts. This is a picture of the hatchery, which is on Gwyn's Island in Matthews, but one idea that came up when we were talking about working waterfronts is to possibly allow them in our working waterfronts district. I did not include that in the ordinance right now. That was our C2 district, which is a residential district. So that I think would be occurred when we actually get to working on the working waterfront district. So we, in the ordinance, again, these CUPs would be case by case, but these are some ideas that staff included in the ordinance for the board and the planning commission to look at. So I'm not going to read them all, but I, again, like mainly hours of operation, the type of water, access to VDOT road, lighting, seating, accessibility, buffer requirements. This ordinance also includes changes to our sign ordinance to basically allow these uses in those districts to have up to 40 square feet of signage. We actually added that to any CUP, so the board can, any CUP could allow additional signage that not currently permitted in that district. And we also added parking requirements for the mobile food court. That would be done as required by CUP. I didn't put CUP there. And then currently in our Article 10 of our, the Commissioner of Revenue's ordinances requires 3 spaces for mobile food trucks. So we just mimicked what was in the peddler's license for that. This is just a reminder, I'm not going to read this, but basically conditional use permits really are a case by case. It's not a guaranteed use of the property. So it would really depend on the conditions of use that were proposed, and each situation would be unique and looked at specifically for that location. So again, just a summary of where we are proposing to allow them. So mobile food vendors, the food trucks that are currently operating in the county, and all our commercial districts, which it's the red, the light blue, and the B4, which is our rural districts, kind of in the different nodes, crossroads in the county. Then in our I1 district, which we have very limited I1 districts. And then agricultural we added for places like the Farmer's Daughter or something if they wanted to have a food truck on their site. And then the permanent ones by conditional use permit would be, again, in all the commercial districts and in our I1 district. So the Planning Commission held the public hearing. We actually didn't have anyone speak at the public hearing, and they voted unanimously to forward it to you for your approval. So that's the end of my comments, and if there are no...
Are there any questions of Ms. Ducey Ortiz? Okay, seeing none, I will open the public hearing to allow for citizen comment. Please state your name, your magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jay Wolfson. These are my sons, Rock and Duke Wolfson. We are out of Whitestone. The small town burger is our concept, our food truck concept. We were hoping, first of all, thank you for allowing us to present this to you guys, and for putting it together. We just, food truck concepts are a great way to really, inspire and add to the community. With done right, can be very beautiful and create some energy and excitement for downtowns or anywhere along the community that you choose. Now, I know this this ordinance is dependent upon approval of CUP, so the presentation and the level of detail and passion as well as concept would need to be approved by you all as well, which we would love to have the opportunity to do so. We are in 2 locations already, Kilmarnock and Urbana. I applaud you to go take a look at either one of our locations. It's very high quality. It fits very well. Our communities love us. We love our communities. It's a very family-oriented type of experience. And it's not just us, but other food truck vendors as well may, at some point, maybe even have a food park or something to that effect that can help. It just gives us an opportunity to be able to do so in this county. We love this county. We spend a lot of time here at my son Rock. If you've ever been to the brewery or, or the Daffodil Festival, he handles all of the truck. We're here very regularly, Flatiron Crossroads. We just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to be part of this community. And hopefully you'll pass this ordinance. That's all. Okay. Any questions?
All right. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing? Ms. Cronin, do we have any comments from online or via phone?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we had a couple of comments submitted. First from Susan Cockrell in Kilmarnock. To the Board of Supervisors, I'm writing to share the positive experience in Kilmarnock with Jay Wolfson, his business in our community. Jay and his family have been excellent owner-operators here in Kilmarnock since 2013 with the creation of Northern Neck Burger, a brick-and-mortar restaurant, and Small Town Burger in 2023, a food truck operation. Both businesses became destination restaurants and anchors in our business district. Small Town Burger is more than a food truck. It is a place to dine, people watch, play cornhole, and experience small-town living. If Gloucester's experience becomes anything like Kilmarnock's, you will have a successful business, a community partner, and a Gloucester advocate. STB is compliant with all regulatory items, taxation, and zoning. He is serious about his businesses and will be that in Gloucester as well. I highly recommend his addition to your business and restaurant economy and ask that you support any code amendments in order to enable STB to operate within Gloucester County. I'm available to answer any questions the BOS or staff may have. Thank you for your consideration of this worthy opportunity. From Matt Hutson in the Ware District. Members of the board, as a representative for the ownership of the lots on Main Street at the corner of Main Street and Clements Avenue, where Small Town Burger is proposing to open a location, I'm writing to fully endorse the proposed changes to the ordinance. Mr. Wolfson and his family run a very high-quality organization that has been a benefit to the communities where they have chosen to locate. This amendment to the ordinance is merely allowing the regulations to keep pace with the times and form a channel through which legitimate businesses can do what many businesses are doing already, but to do so in a legal and compliant way. The manner in which planning has drafted the ordinance still allows checkpoints, as with a CUP, to prevent locations or uses that would not be beneficial, while allowing good users to conduct their business without undue regulatory burden. As a community, we should be proud that businesses like this see Gloucester Courthouse as a strong location, and we should do everything in our power to make it easy and straightforward for them to start and do business. Those are all the comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. One last call for any citizens to come forward to speak this evening before I close the public hearing. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and look to my fellow board members if they have any other questions or if there's anything else they'd like to discuss.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Dr. Leming.
I frequent Kilmarnock on a relatively frequent basis. I've been to the establishment 6-8 times in my life. It's always been clean, I will say that. It's always been well organized. The food is great. The prices are reasonable. I've always been impressed at the ability for them to have the electronic services that you would find in a brick and mortar establishment in a little food truck. My personal experiences would be to favor the resolution approving the concept, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Orth.
Yeah, last week I mentioned about this board being business friendly, and I think that this type of resolution for food truck vendors is certainly one that expresses our interest in making the county more business friendly. So I would certainly think that this board will support this particular issue.
Ms. Hanson.
I tend to agree with you, Dr. Worth, but we want to be friendly to the businesses that are here and struggling, and a mobile or a park would be competed against some great restaurants. To me, if you want to come to this county, pay for the building, rent the building, serve the people in the community. This mobile food truck, I think, is a little bit of fatty thing that can go away. And certainly, I think the location that's being proposed is not a good location for the type of things they've done in Kilmarnock, as far as the space and the area if you have children and people, and parking. I mean, we all complain about parking in the courthouse. I certainly do support new businesses, and I would like to see him come and open up a shop here in Gloucester County. We have certainly many buildings that he can open up a burger shop, which would be a great addition to Gloucester County. But I don't like the idea of having a food truck court where many other food trucks could come in and compete with, you know, our Gloucester County residents who already have some really good restaurants and options. So that's my opinion on that.
Okay. Mr. Hutson.
Although we're bringing up Small Town Burger, I guess my only complaint is when I was there for their Oyster Festival in Urbana, they didn't have anything oyster related, but maybe next year. But as far as as far as this ordinance is concerned, this isn't about Small Town Burger or any other food trucks. It's about having the opportunity for us to have a location where we can put food trucks. That's what we're voting on, to give them a CUP that they can then come back to the Planning Commission to then come back to the board. This is just giving us the opportunity. And I think as Ms. Ducey Ortiz said, once working waterfronts get established a little bit better, we add that in there, and we can have a little more destination places like that. So I think we need to be open-minded, because although what we're looking at with this ordinance is not going to approve anything on Main Street for Small Town Burger today or tomorrow, they still have to come back and apply. This is just gives us the opportunity to have this.
Gives us the opportunity to even have the discussion, which we currently cannot. Yeah, I don't see an issue. And Mr. Nicosia, Mr. Bonniville, anything from you before I ask for a motion?
No, I'm in agreement. I think it'd be great addition to our area. You may find this surprising, but I frequent food trucks in the city in which I work in. Too many of y'all laughing. In the city in which I work in, it's a very popular thing, and I don't think it's a fad, because it's been around for 10, 12 years now. So yeah, I fully support this.
Ms. Hanson.
I want to make sure that I clarify. I don't have a problem with this type of venue. It's just, I do not think it belongs in the courthouse area.
But
and
but tonight is just so we can have that discussion. They have to come back again.
And I just want to clarify.
Ask us about wherever they wanted to put it. So,
that's fine.
yeah, tonight's not about their location. It's about whether or not we can even
Because I
have
think
this
there's
discussion.
some great places in Gloucester County that would benefit from it, so.
Mr. Nicosia.
To feel like we need to open the discussion. And so, like Ms. Bonniville, I frequent Dallas, Texas, quite frequently. And one thing that my father-in-law, before he passed away, one of the things he enjoyed the most was the food trucks on the, what he called the market. And so I think we should at least entertain some conversation.
We have an ordinance to amend on page 43 of our packet.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Baines, would you poll the board?
Certainly. Dr. Leming?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson? Mr. Bonniville? Dr. Orth? It
Very good.
passes.
Thank you. We will now move to our regular agenda. The first item on our regular agenda is an update and request for direction on financing for Gloucester Volunteer Fire and Rescue Station 1. Ms. Maria Calloway, Deputy County Administrator, CFO, and Mr. Ted Cole, Senior Vice President of Davenport and Company.
Good evening. Tonight's presentation is intended to be somewhat of a continuation from the March 26th presentation, in which Mr. Cole provided the board with information on bank proposals to finance the construction of Gloucester Volunteer Fire and Rescue Station 1. After that meeting, the Davenport as well as staff took in the board's wishes and direction, and Davenport went back to banks and asked for some refreshed terms. And so we do have, initially it was one, I believe we have multiple banks that have provided refreshed terms, two which have a deadline coming up shortly this month, where that decision would need to be made if the board wishes to accept that proposal. So therefore, we are going to be seeking board direction this evening on whether or not the board would like to go with one of these proposals. And Mr. Cole from Davenport, our financial advisors, is here to provide you with that updated information. So without further ado, Mr. Cole. Throw my pen on the ground. Thank you.
Well, good evening. You all should have a handout, and it's the same as what's up on the screen. This is an update, as Maria said, and I'll work my way through these slides. Please stop me if you have any questions. Are you doing it? There we go. All right, so page numbers in the bottom right corners. As Maria said, we went back to the 5 banks that had submitted proposals. They're there in the middle of the page, listed alphabetically. We are still working with a project cost estimate. We had sort of established an upper level of what we thought that might be of $20 million. Bids on the project are due, I believe, on June 1st. That's the plan. So we'll know at that point what the cost is, what the borrowing amount needs to be. But all of these banks have put their proposals together based on what could be a $20 million borrowing. We have the ability to downsize that based on the actual proposals. And nothing will close on the financing until the project bids are in hand and you all are satisfied that, you know, the bids are good and you're getting what you want, et cetera. Same structure. This is a issuance that would be under the name of the Economic Development Authority. It would be secured by a security interest in the facility, and there would be a support agreement by you all, the county board, to make the annual payments. Nothing has changed there. When we presented in March, we talked about a 20 or a 25-year term. I think there was a general consensus that you all would prefer to stick to a shorter amortization or loan term of 20 years. We went back to all 5 banks. We asked them to consider their entire proposal, whether that's updating the interest rate, updating the prepayment language, any other terms and conditions that they included, and indicated that we really were looking for proposals that could be, quote unquote, locked in, rates that could be locked in for a closing as late as the end of July. Right? And we sort of purposely went to the end of July so that you all had adequate time to review the project bids, go through your process, whatever that may be, to select the construction bid that you want to move forward with, et cetera. So what I'm about to present is the update of those proposals. And again, we're talking about a direct bank loan closing in mid or late July, 20-year term. We also spent a little more time with county staff and talked about payment dates. With bank financing, you know, you have some options. Do you pay twice a year, once a year, quarterly? We had originally suggested to the banks that principal would be paid once a year, interest twice a year. That's pretty typical structure for a municipal loan. And that principal would be paid on June 1. We went back and looked and talked about the cash flows of the county on an annual basis. What months did you have more money coming in than going out? Because that depends on seasonality. And determined that a preferred payment structure would be principal paid once a year on December 1st. That's when you have the best cash flow. We also wanted to move away from some payment dates that were already locked in for a number of other loans to sort of spread the payments through the calendar year or fiscal year. So when you go to the top of page 3, the payment structure that we requested was a 20-year term that would close by the end of July. The first interest would be, I'm talking off the top bullet, December 1 of 26, that's interest. And the first principal would be paid on December 1 of 28, which is roughly equal to when the project should be complete or thereabouts. So it's interest only during the construction period, but it has a final maturity from loan closing of 20 years, which would be the final payment would be 12/1 of 46. So 20 years total term. But principal begins on 12/1 of 28, which is fiscal year 29. The refresh proposals are what you see on the table. The highlighted light green, Chesapeake Bank and Webster Bank are the two that we think are most worth conversation this evening, and I'll kind of work my way from left to right. Chesapeake Bank, they confirmed, and it's a proposal we have in writing, that the loan, once it's closed, could be prepaid in whole or in part at any time without penalty. So complete flexibility to pay down the loan, to refinance the loan, literally beginning a day after you close if there were a reason to do that. So complete flexibility. The rate they gave us was a fixed rate for the entire term of 4.64%. That is a little bit lower than the proposal they had originally provided, the rate they had originally provided. That proposal is good if we are in a position to accept it by May 8th, and we can accept it by email or a phone call. It's not a real difficult process to accept it. And we would need to close by the end of July. That rate will not change if that's the schedule we go on. It's locked for a closing. You're not floating with the market. Webster Bank, they were not willing or able to change their prepayment language. So their prepayment language is not quite as flexible. It's prepayable in whole or in part on any day. There's a 30-day notice. After year 5, but after year 5, there would be a 1% penalty for any amount you prepay. That's roughly $10,000 per million. And then after year 8, it could be prepaid without penalty. So you have the ability to prepay it after year 5, but not without a penalty until after year 8. So you have some flexibility, but not as much. Their rate is 4.575. It's fixed. It's a little higher than their original rate, so they did not reduce their rate, but they came back with a refreshed rate, which is what we asked for. Their deadline to accept is May 15th. Their closing deadline would be July 15th, so a couple weeks shorter than Chesapeake Bank. So those are the two that we recommend we discuss here this evening. And as Maria said, we really, if possible, would like to get some direction from you all on which of those to accept. And I'll explain what that means and where we would go from there. On page 4, some of this I've covered, right? If you kind of go down, we've got the rate. The collateral on line 2 is the same. It's secured by the facility. It's got a support agreement by the county to make the payments. That's a pretty typical structure for an EDA type of financing. The EDA really does not have a significant role in the repayment of the debt. It's a pass-through entity. So this is really an obligation of the County Board of Supervisors. And if you ever weren't in a position or chose not to make the payment, the lender would have rights to foreclose on the facility. Collateral requirements, they're pretty similar. Both of them are going to want to make sure there's clean title, there's title insurance, there's a flood certification, and an environmental report. So they're really very similar in that regard, and none of those are out of the ordinary for this type of financing. We've talked about the prepayment provisions. Line 5 is the project fund or escrow. So what that's getting to is when we close the loan, how much money do we get and where does it go? Originally, and what is pretty typical is you close the loan and you get all the money at once and you put it in an investment account. The state has one that you all have used regularly called Virginia SNAP. So you get all of the funding at closing. Let's just use that round number of 20 million. You set it in the account, you invest it, and then the money's there as you're spending on construction costs. That is what both of them had originally proposed, and that is what Webster Bank continues to propose. Chesapeake Bank is fine with that scenario, but they also offered that if it is preferred, they could do more of a drawdown where you could pull, you don't take all the money at closing. We might need to take a certain amount at closing to satisfy the attorneys and the tax exempt status of the debt. I think that's an IRS regulation, but suffice it to say, if there is an immediate drawdown, it's not big dollars, but then the monies could be drawn from the bank as needed. The interest that you owe would accrue on the drawdown, not the full 20 million. So you're pulling down $1 million a month, whatever it might be, And that is how the interest is calculated during the construction period. You're also not earning any interest on the money, right? Because the money's sitting with the bank and you pull it as you need it. In today's environment, if you were to take all that money and invest it in the Virginia SNAP program, you're going to earn around a 3.8%. Your borrowing rate is over 4%. So it's not matched, right? Taking all of the 20 million and paying over 4% on it, but earning a 380 during construction, you're not covering the cost. So the drawdown option has a lot of appeal. We don't need direction on that this evening, but it is a nice option that they've provided that I think, subject to further discussions and et cetera, that you will probably want to take advantage of if you move forward with Chesapeake Bank. Again, we know we have an acceptance deadline. Both of them will have attorneys that represent them. That's pretty typical. There's going to be a cost associated with that. $20,000 to $30,000 was the estimate that Chesapeake gave us. Webster gave us a fee of $15,000, but I will note with Webster that $15,000 is the cost for the attorney, but not like the title insurance. That comes at a cost. Chesapeake's quote included the attorney and the title insurance. So when we looked at it a little more closely, they're going to end up being very similar when you look at the cost of their attorney plus the cost of the title insurance. And the borrower would normally cover all of those. So line 7, they're going to be very close to one another in that regard. Both of them are subject to final credit approval. That is not out of the ordinary. The first step that we're going to take with the banks, or the bank, if you all choose to move forward, is sharing with them the loan documents. Those are being worked on by your attorneys. Once we get those in good shape, we'll share it with the bank and make sure it meets with all of their expectations. That will be a big part of sort of finalizing their commitment. So we're all moving forward in good faith, sharing documents back and forth, giving them what they need to do their final credit approval. It would be very uncommon at this stage with these types of proposals that a bank wouldn't be in a position to close the loan unless there was just something unexpected and out of the ordinary that would come to light between now and closing. So they're very similar in that regard. They're pretty comparable proposals, to be honest with you, with the caveat that the prepayment language is more favorable with Chesapeake, slightly higher interest rate with Chesapeake, but you also have this drawdown option. Any questions there? All right, next slide, just a side-by-side comparison, Chesapeake next to Webster. Starting at the top, just some of the key assumptions about closing, payment dates, the par call on line 6. That means when can you call it without penalty. Chesapeake Bank, it starts immediately. Webster Bank, that no penalty prepayment is in 2034. They're both a tad over 20 years and a few months. You've got the rates. We look at the rates on line 9 and 10 two different ways. Just they're one way to measure the rate is what we call a true interest cost. That's their stated rate on their proposal, but when you pull in cost of issuance, we have what's called the all-in interest cost on line 10. They're just different ways to calculate the interest rate. They're not conflicting with one another. For now, this comparison on line 17 is delivering to you all at closing $18.9 million. That will be fine-tuned once the bids come in and we know how much money is needed. We have a pretty healthy allowance for cost of issuance. We're gathering those costs, working with staff to quantify them and summarize them. That will be coming together as we move forward. What are the cost of issuance to be included? Normally, we would include as many of those costs in the borrowing amount as we can. With this type of debt, there is a 2% limitation of how much of the cost of issuance can be included in the borrowing. We'll work through that once we have the final cost of issuance budget. So they're similar in that respect. And then what you can see is by fiscal year what the expected annual payment is for each of the loans or each of the options. With the one caveat that under Chesapeake Bank, we've modeled it as if you get the full $20 million at closing and you start paying the interest on that, it's really more, it would be a lower payment for during construction if you use the drawdown. And as we move forward, we'll dig into that a little more because we need to understand what is the expected spend of the money in order to calculate what the interest would be on the drawdown option. So based on everything we're seeing, with the drawdown option, if that's ultimately selected, under Chesapeake Bank, those first couple years of interest should be lower because you're not paying interest on the full amount. Get all the way down to the bottom. If both of these were to play out to final maturity and never be prepaid or refunded, they're about $176,000 different in total payment, Webster being a little bit lower because they have a slightly lower rate. Everything else is pretty equal between the two. It's about $8,400 a year. And what I would say to that is the drawdown function of Chesapeake will close that gap. And the more favorable prepayment option, while I can't guarantee that will work in your favor, it certainly sets you up to be able to take advantage of a refinancing or a repayment, an accelerated repayment if we find that that's an option. It gives you 8 years to take advantage of potentially lower rates in the future than you would have with Webster Bank. And it's hard to quantify what that value is, but I feel pretty strongly there is real value there. And as a result, you're going to see, after conversations with staff, I'm going to come back to this slide, we are recommending on page 7 that you all consider moving forward with Chesapeake Bank, accepting their proposal. I've covered this, but flexible prepayment, ability to take advantage of the drawdown loan will be an advantage to you all financially, and they give you a little longer time to close if it would be necessary. The schedule that we have laid out on the right-hand side, obviously this evening, as Maria said, it would be great to get direction. I think that direction could come, I think I've gotten in trouble with this before. I don't know if it's a motion or it's a consensus, but the county attorney will give direction on how that might come. Some sort of guidance. The ability to accept the proposal. Construction bids are due on June 1. We'll have a lot more clarity on the project and the financing at that point. And if we're ready to move forward, there's a June 23rd opportunity to hold the EDA meeting where there will be a required public hearing. They would approve what needs to be approved by them. July 7th would be the one meeting for this board, and we would be in a position to close as soon thereafter as you're able, knowing we have to do it by July 31st. Probably the biggest task between now and then is just finalizing the documents at the county level with your attorneys, and then getting them circulated to the bank for their review. But again, we don't expect any issues with that process. We just felt like it was a better approach to make sure here locally everybody was on the same page with the documents before rolling them out to the bank. I do want to just note on this slide, and I realize the FY27 budget is largely put to bed, but this is keeping with the same Chesapeake next to Webster. We've got a very detailed model at the back, which you all have seen before. And remember, all of this is predicated on, I think, approximately $1 million from the volunteer fire and rescue squad moving over to the county in fiscal 27, I think is what we've talked about, Maria. And what we're showing you on like lines 4 through 9 is based on our model, what additional dollars might need to be made available in certain fiscal years to supplement the dollars you're already committing to debt service and capital. So over about a 4-year period, there's an additional about $1.4 million of dollars needed over a 4-year period Another way to measure that is it would be the equivalent of about 1 penny of revenue between 28 and 29. That doesn't mean there's a 1 penny tax increase necessarily, just another way to measure the additional dollars that would be needed. And that would happen, those dollars would be needed in 28 and 29. Or if you were to say, what if we were to set ourselves up and put the new revenue in place as part of the upcoming budget, it would be the equivalent of about a half a penny. And again, I would caveat with the drawdown option, that's going to take a little bit of pressure off of that. It's going to look marginally better. I'm not sure it will eliminate the need for those additional resources, but it will reduce them. And this is, thus far, that's probably some of the lower impacts or additional revenues we've identified as we've gone through that with the caveat of the project cost that we're still using an assumption. So let me stop there, see if there's any questions or discussion.
Any questions of Mr. Cole? Dr. Leming.
So I think we all probably understand it. I'm just going to ask you a sort of a silly question, and it's really more for the public than it is for you. Originally, when we had sort of had these loose conversations, I talked about how most people build a home. Most people get a construction loan, they draw down on that loan as they're building the house, and then there's an agreement that at the conclusion of that construction, they turn it into hopefully a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. So is what I'm listening to you talk about Chesapeake essentially that model where they're going to approve a total amount as the construction progresses, the contractor would take a draw periodically to meet demands of the contractors, and then instead of having to convert that construction loan over to a permanent fixed rate, it's already done.
Correct. You are correct.
So is that essentially the model that everybody I agree with the model. I'm just
yes, that is what Chesapeake has offered with that drawdown. With the added advantage is during that drawdown period, oftentimes that interest rate will float, and then it's locked after construction at a rate to be determined at that time. In this case, subject to all the verification, that rate is locked. So you have the benefit of the drawdown, but you also have the benefit of knowing what the rate will be when we convert it to the permanent loan. So you're correct.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Is there any, I know you said we had the appendix in here. Is there anything you want to go over in that, or are you good?
I'm good if you all are comfortable with the information.
So, Mr. Wilmot, would you prefer a motion or consensus? Motion, please. I just want to make sure we don't do anything to not make you happy, Davenport happy, or anybody else.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
I'll be
Waller.
abstaining from voting for this.
Okay. Mr. Hutson.
We don't want to upset the Teds, but the June 23rd EDA board meeting, it's scheduled for 8:30 in the morning. Do you think that could be rescheduled to a time later when possibly people could come? I think that might be advantageous.
I know that's their standard meeting time.
I know, but it is their standard meeting time, but I know we've had discussion about board meetings having discussion and decisions made when people are working. This might hinder people from showing up. I don't know if anybody'd show up even if it's at night, but it might hinder people from showing up.
They are their own board, but I certainly can ask them.
And that just somewhat related, that public hearing will have to be run in the paper a certain number of times in advance, and there's going to be a dollar amount included in that is a not to exceed. We can come lower, we can't go above it. So Figuring out the date and time definitively, we'll work towards that, but I think we've got some time.
This is the notice that Ms. Callaway gave me yesterday or today, which I just finished reviewing. It's not to exceed $20 million. It indicates it's 8:30 a.m., Building 1, first floor, on June the 23rd. I put a star, consider changing the time. So I've already finished reviewing that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? We have two proposals before us. They both need to have action prior to our next board meeting. Is there a flavor to move forward with one of these two? Okay. So which one would you all like to look to proceed with? I know where I'm at. I would like to proceed with Chesapeake Bank. So we have a motion to move forward with the Chesapeake Bank agreement. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Baines, would you poll the board?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonniville? Abstain. Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming? Very good. Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have a decision to create a working group or task force to explore a sports complex at the old Page site. Dr. Leming.
I don't know whose it is. Mr. Chairman, at the recent EDA board meeting, there was a substantial conversation about a community center, sports complex, potentially a permanent library site being used at the old Page site. I was actually surprised at the enthusiasm of the EDA over the topic. And they felt very strongly that if the board would support a working group, a commission, a task force, I don't think anybody cares what you call it. But the task force would probably have maybe 2 board members from this board, 2 board members from the EDA, administration, planning and zoning, maybe engineering, and then it would also probably include leadership from the youth sports leagues that are here in the county. It could include a lot of people. I don't have a list, to be honest with you. But I think that the EDA really was looking for leadership from the board about getting a group together and trying to have some leadership and some vision with what to do with the Page site. I believe, Mr. Chairman, you recall when we were all, and actually more of us were, in November at a retreat, and this conversation had some attraction at the time. I'll just say that's a good word, traction. It seemed to have some attraction. And I think that there's a sense in the community of frustration that the Page site is just sitting there. And I think that while some people would love to see it become an industrial site, it's a 28-acre site that really probably is never going to really be an industrial site. But it could really be something great. It could be a community center / sports center / eventually maybe instead of having 2 libraries, we'd have a central library. You could have a food court there, which we talked about tonight, by the way. And I don't think there's anybody out there to compete with if you have a food court. And I'm really just looking for guidance, Mr. Chairman. That's really what I'm looking for. I don't think it needs a motion. If we could do it by consensus and council approved of that. I just need to be able to go back to the EDA and say, the board said yay or nay, and if the board is going to say yay, then we need 2 people to sort of volunteer. By the way, we have our first designee who volunteered sitting in the corner. I think she said something like, well, I would like to be on that committee after I work for James City County.
Well, I think it's a great idea. In my experience traveling around to different places, I'd like to work with you with that because I think it's a good idea to see the feasibility of putting something there.
Ms. Hanson.
I 100% agree with you, Joe. I absolutely think a community center is something that our community needs. And it may not come today or tomorrow, but if we don't start working on the process and the vision to putting that out there to moving forward, we could potentially lose an opportunity for our community. And I also think, you know, here we are raising taxes or doing things with taxpayers' money. And what do they see out of that? What do they see in the community besides fire stations and other necessities? I think it'd be nice for the community to see something that belongs to them that they're paying for, that they can utilize for parks and recs, maybe even for programs, or even for the elderly. Sometimes people think community centers are just for the children. If they have the facilities, you know, you can have yoga classes for, you know, adults, or maybe continuing ed or anything like that. It could have such an impact. And I know when I went to California, and there's not a lot I like in California, but my daughter and my granddaughter spend a lot of time in their community centers. Basketball, you know, soccer. They have a community garden. Cora loved it because they didn't have one at their house. So it was a place for everyone to gather, and it was a place for the community to have something to bring them together. And I think it's really important. I've always wanted to see that in Gloucester, being a lifelong resident, having children. And people always complain there's nothing for children to do in Gloucester. Also, it's sad to drive by there and see these kids playing on those fields where my son played football and my daughter cheerleaded with diesel-powered lights, you know, in the dark with really, really bad fields and bad conditions. I mean, I remember doing concession stand out there when I was a teen mom. I think it's a great idea, and I absolutely would love to help you and participate in that.
Any other comments?
I'll make the motion. It's a consensus.
I don't think we need to have anything but a consensus, because this is going to take a while for staff and Dr. Leming to come up with the exact formula. I do not see a problem with this either. My only concern is we're going to end up with a project that will have a huge dollar amount attached to it, and after we have that huge dollar amount to build it, you're probably gonna have a membership fee, because it's just, it's a concern, but by all means, we should have the conversation.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick second. And I think you're right. I mean, I don't know what the total cost would be. I don't know what, I've never constructed a community center or a sports center pro forma personally. I have no ability to see that in the future. But I do recall that in November, we had a conversation within the board, and I think Ms. Cronin was probably there. We took minutes for the meeting. And one of the conversations that was had was about accessibility for all. And there may, in fact, eventually be a membership fee, but the thought was that we would put into place a financial sliding scale such that the people who had the least could still benefit from the facilities. Absolutely. And I think that's important for the public to hear. This is not, I never envisioned for this to be a, what's the word I want, a patriarch-only group. I mean for this to eventually be for the service of all the citizens of Gloucester, young, old, etc. I will just also note, as a lifelong sort of educator myself, that's what I do every day. I teach people how to save their own lives, that we need a tool to teach our children how to swim. It's a life skill that in a waterfront community we need to have every child at least know how to not drown.
Yes, correct. So is there a consensus to have Dr. Leming and staff move forward with this? I think there is. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have a discussion over a special called meeting. On Friday, I will be meeting with the Berkeley group and Mr. Payne, who helped us with our last search. We will have initial discussions, and they were looking at wanting to do something next week with all of us. It could be open meeting or closed meeting. It would be our decision, but I already know I have a couple of board members that will have a conflict. So with that being said, I will look at the dates with the Berkeley group, and I will get Ms. Cronin to get us a doodle poll together to figure out what will work best the following week. I know that they cannot be here. I believe we have a meeting on the 19th. I know that will not work for the Berkeley group.
Mr. Chairman, I got an email that Mr. Payne said that Warrington is only going to do interviews on the 18th, so he is now available on the 19th.
Okay,
He
so
wasn't-
that's new information. So we might be able to do this on our 19th work session. But because I haven't seen that yet. But if we get that, then that's what we'll do. But if that will not work, then I will have a doodle poll sent out for us to determine what will work. And that would be the same week of the 19th, but hopefully it'll work on the 19th. That is good information to have. So I wanted to make you all aware of what was going on there. And I don't think there's any other action for that tonight. So we will move on now to our board appointments. We have several, I think, a majority of which are just a reappointment if we're desirable to move forward with the reappointments. And there's one that we'll need Ms. Hanson to find a comprehensive plan steering committee member. Yep, I know, it's never easy. But there are two that you, in here, that you can either choose one or you can make contact and we can do it at our next meeting. So with that being said, we have a Board of Social Services reappointment. Is there a second? We have a Board of Zoning Appeals for Mr. Gandolfo. Anybody can make that one. We have a motion. Is there a second? And then for Community Policy and Management Team, we have the Chriscoe. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hanson, are you prepared? Or do you want to talk to them and come back?
I think that would probably be
Okay. And then we have a reappointment of Ms. Biggers to the Middle Peninsula Juvenile Detention Commission. Is there a motion? Is there a second? We have a motion and a second for 4 of the 5 open positions. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Perfect. County Attorney items, Mr. Wilmot.
Yes, sir, I'm glad to be here, and I believe this is Ms. Callaway's last day with the county until she returns at some day in the future. I've enjoyed working with her. I think she's great. She's intelligent, quick, efficient, responsive, capable, knowledgeable, all of those accolades. So I hope she takes all of those to York County and
James City.
Oh, well, that too. Well, after
She can leave
James
some
City.
of them in York County and take the rest
Yeah.
of James City County.
She has so
on her
many,
way.
she could drop a few everywhere she goes. And then when she comes back, she can reutilize them for Gloucester County.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Any boards and commissions report? Supervisor discussion. Dr. Leming.
Mr. Chairman, I had a constituent call me, today is Tuesday, must have been Saturday, who said they found it very difficult to find the phone number for codes and compliance. And they actually gave me a number that they had called, and it was an old codes and compliance number. I can tell you the number really quickly that they gave me. The number that they had tried was 804, well, 804-693-4040.
804-693-4040 is not available. Sorry. Old code compliance AA main menu. 804-693-4040 is not available. Sorry. Old code compliance AA.
Well, my point, Mr. Chairman, my only point is not that there's a dysfunctional phone. It's that it ought to be easier on the website to find. That's really my point. And I know that perhaps people probably just pick up the phone and call administration, to be candid with you, or they send an email to administration, and it's up to somebody else to sort of redirect the phone call or the email. And it just struck me that, and yes, Mr. Wilmot, I think you are correct about the other number being the current one.
Correct me, it's 0219. 021.
Yeah.
I think the current number that I looked up today after I put into the search engine on our site, phone number for codes and compliance is 804-693-0219. But you had to put the right words into the search engine to get that. And I just thought it ought to be an easier, anyway. Thank you, Mr.
Actually, I
Chairman.
think there's more going on with that. I'm glad you brought that up because I had to call Robert for the museum. I'll get out in a minute, and it was not even the right number. And so I was like, I had asked somebody for his cell phone number or what the right number was, and so I've gotten to voicemails to not the right name either. So I think maybe we need to take a look at, like, maybe somebody updating some of the county information and names.
You pull up Gloucester County Codes and Compliance. If you just Google search it, it comes up with a little map, an address, says permanently closed with the 693-4040 number.
That's what my constituent did. I mean, so anyway, it just strikes me as something that we can straighten out on our own website and make it more obvious and not have administration be the recipient of the phone calls.
I love calling directions.
I have all the confidence that Ms. Cronin can handle the phone calls, but she has other things to do.
Correct. Yes, we will. Yes, Ms. Cronin.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to butt into the meeting. I can tell you, we did have an issue with Google. It wasn't for the, we had the building that planning and zoning was in our old, it was the old building 3, right? And that was the 4040 number. And so that's probably still stuck somewhere in that Google search. I know there was something we tried multiple times to get. It was actually the Department of Social Services had the wrong listing, and it kept coming up completely wrong. We submitted request after request after request to Google. George then went back channels. I'm not sure how he did. Eventually, we got something fixed. So that is a problem with Google searches. And speaking for myself and for Whitney, our county administration number is at the bottom of every single page on the website. And we do that intentionally because one of us is generally answering the phone. And we are happy to direct people. And I understand your point. It should be easier for them to find. But so obviously I can't speak for administration. I just wanted you to know we are aware of the Google issue, and but we are happy to direct
I know
anybody
that
that needs it.
the Board of Social, or the Social Services Office, I think, was permanently closed from the time they started renovation until about 6 months ago. So.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think one of the other issues, and I don't want to weave through the weeds of this, but, you know, codes and compliance is not in planning and zoning. The codes officer works for the building inspector. So, I mean, what they do after they can't find the numbers, they either call planning and zoning or they call, I mean, it's not intuitive that the code officer is working for the building inspector. I mean, it's just not intuitive. And I would think that if we had just a more simple way on the website, that if you have a complaint about your property or property around you, here's the number.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other supervisor discussion? I would like to reiterate Mr. Wilmot's comments regarding Ms. Callaway. We are certainly going to miss you here. We wish you nothing but the best. And, you know, if the path leads you back here, it leads you back here. We are very appreciative of everything that you have done for us in both of your stints here in this county. And I want you to make sure that you know that from the board. Yep. Seeing that, we have no further supervisor discussion, no closed meeting. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. All in favor? We are adjourned.